Coach. Thanks for your time after a busy weekend, a busy beginning of the week. I think we're going to start with BJ. He's got our first question today.
Okay.
Yeah, so first off, congratulations on making that to the third round of the playoffs for the first time since 2015. After the win Saturday, you said you were having some mixed emotions because of how the game ended. But now that you've had time to reflect, how do you feel?
Well, I think initially, right after the game, and even through the weekend, I still had those mixed emotions. BJ, I was excited that we won because it was really a tough, hard-fought game against a really good opponent, and we got to advance somewhere that we haven't been in a while. But I still think I didn't like all the penalties, like we've talked about many times here, both ways. I thought it was a very chippy game. I didn't think it was a dirty game at all. I just thought a lot of talking, which resulted in penalties, and just you're always disappointed when you go through a handshake line and things are emotional and there's things being said that shouldn't be said, and it kind of takes away from that excitement and joy you get from winning a close overtime game in the playoffs. So. Still feel that way, but know that we're excited. We're blessed to get to advance. I think it's a huge teaching moment for our kids and our program, and feel really lucky that we have another week to teach and develop and get better and grow from it, and continue to improve ourselves, not only as players and as team, but as young men. Football is a really emotional game, and it's really emotional in the playoffs. When it's win or go home, and when you're dealing with high school kids, it's both sides, emotions, and it's our job as adults and the leaders to teach them how, as best we can, and model how to handle those things. So hopefully we'll get better from it. But again, excited for our kids, our school, our team to get to move on.
Yeah, just like you said you want a team to play with emotion, but not emotionally. And I feel like we saw more the latter than probably what you wanted from both sides. So how does a high school coach prepare high schoolers to manage their emotions in those adrenaline-filled, emotionally charged moments? And how difficult is that a task for the athlete and for you?
Well, I think there's a couple things you got to do. Number one, you have to have constant messaging about that. Number one, you have to constantly be talking about those things and those words, and I promise you that's all we talked about all week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday before the game, Saturday at halftime, keeping our emotions in check, handling adversity. The only thing that's going to stop us is us. So you have to constantly message that. Number two, you have to model that as the coach. It doesn't do me any good to talk about handling adversity well and keeping our emotions in check if I'm losing my mind. And I think 99% of the time, our coaching staff models that calmness. We even were modeling that calmness at the end of the game when our coaches are trying to do things. But I still think it's hard because you're still dealing with young men and teenagers that aren't fully developed emotionally and mentally, and we're constantly having to meet, talk, engage those things, and just mentor and set the example. And I think that's the best thing you do. I don't believe it does us any good to get mad and scream and yell and run guys for those things, because that is actually an emotional response to them being emotional. So, I just think we have to set the example and continue messaging and continue talking and help our players work through it. And I think we'll get better. I mean, we all like to think when we were 15, 16, 17 that I was so calm and unemotional, but I was the exact same way. I got technicals in basketball games playing for my dad. So we don't need to go in my history, losing my emotions, but we're just trying to message it, model it, and help our players work through those emotions.
Community's first score came on a fake punt. In an interview with the Pantograph, Dexter Niekamp said you installed that play in the game plan last Monday. Can you talk a little about the decision to add that to the Ironman arsenal and the decision to call the fake?
Yeah, so I would love to take credit for it as a special teams coordinator. But Coach Messina, our offensive coordinator, on Monday or Tuesday said, hey, look at their punt. I think we could slip our left tackle out and throw the fake because of the way they were pressuring from the backside. So we repped it starting on Monday or Tuesday, the days that we rep punt. I actually think it was good. We got to rep it one day. We stayed inside. The day was really cold and windy, and I actually think that was beneficial. And then the decision that I had in my head is we were going to punt once and see if we got the look that we thought. And they gave us that look, and then we called on the second one. I was confident that it was going to hopefully work. But still, when you call a fake punt, that moment, you're like, I hope it works. And then as soon as the ball was snapped and I watched how it went down, Kyle executed well, our front line executed, and Dexter did as well. And you see what type of football player Dexter is with the football in his hands.
There were so many different ways that game played out. It was so many twists and turns. But in the second half, in the first half, the red zone converting into touchdowns. Second half, you got down there a number of times. Just couldn't punch it in. Talk about maybe the difficulties you had in the red zone on Saturday.
So I think it's really came down to two red zone possessions. I think in the third quarter we were going down. I don't know how much time it was, and we were really clipping off plays at a good bit. And we called a pass combination that got intercepted, like I think about the 20 or the 18 on it was either first down or second down. I mean, their corner made a great play to catch it and stay in bounds, but we poorly executed the route, which threw the timing off, which put him not in the right spot, and then we didn't execute the throw. So that was probably points, which makes a huge difference in the game. And in the fourth quarter, we're driving, and just did a really good job keeping the ball and running clock and running the ball effectively. And then we get down to, it was 2nd and 2nd and 4 from the 5. And Kyle makes a great read, just trying to make a play to get in the end zone, and dives, and the ball gets knocked out of his hands. And that was a big deal. Because I felt like if we would have scored there, that makes it I can't remember exactly, it made it a 10-point game with like 6 minutes or 5 minutes to go in the game. Feel good about that with our defense. Still, even though we were disappointed, I felt good about our defense playing them backed up, and we almost had them for a safety, and then we let them out on a 3rd and long on a screen, even though we were yelling at our players that a screen was coming. But the defense then buckles down and keeps them to a field goal. Don't think we really executed at the end of regulation very well, and that's really on me. I think I got to do a much better job of that at the end of the game. We don't execute a screen pass, which is a safe call in that. I think if we catch it, we might have been in business, but we didn't. Then we don't execute the punt. Don't get the punt kicked the right way. We don't cover it correctly, and they take it to the end zone. It was called back on a good call. I mean, it was a legit call. So then we go to overtime, and the rest is history.
Talk about overtime. Overtime in Illinois high school football is unique. It's 10 yards. It's a compressed field. Talk about maybe how the game changes and how the offensive play calls change a little bit at that point.
Well, I think it does. You can allow yourself to get tense and get away from doing what you do. And I think Chris, our offensive coordinator, does a great job of being aggressive. When we came out of the gate throwing an out corner and Marquand was wide open, we just got a little bit of pressure and couldn't see him. But then we were handling it the right way of thinking, don't think about plays, think about players. Who do we want to have the ball in our hands to give us a chance to win in overtime? And we tried to get the ball to Marquand with number 11, and then we tried to hand it off to number 4 and get in the end zone. Those are usually pretty good choices to make. And then defensively, we played our goal line defense that we worked on and prepared during the week. You got to stick with who you are and what you believe. And if you're prepared correctly, you find a way to win. And we've been on the other side of games like that in the past year. It was nice to come out on the positive side for sure.
You're probably going to see some more mobile quarterbacks here as the playoffs go along. Talk about facing a really good mobile quarterback on Saturday and some of the difficulties that really challenges your defense with.
Well, I think – are you talking about this past Saturday? So Ethan Cole is an outstanding quarterback, a really good player. I mean, he's a really good thrower. 2 of his touchdown passes, were just great throws into tight windows and put it where only his guy could get it. And on top of that, he's a very physical runner. He's a big, physical, good-looking kid. Runs physical, hard to get down. And then thirdly, we talked about it. When he scrambles, he does a great job of keeping his eyes downfield. We came out of coverage, and they hit a long pass. So anytime you got a quarterback that can throw and run, it makes it really challenging. I think what we saw also on Saturday is Kyle's running ability is starting to get better and making him a little bit more of a difficult quarterback to defend. So anytime you got a quarterback can do both, that's always a scary proposition for your defense, but it's a comfort for you offensively. And the guy that we're playing this Saturday is no different.
Looking at Glenbard, so starting running back Matt Larson averaged over 10 yards per carry on Friday, ending with 296 yards in all of Glenbard's touchdowns. Are you expecting him to play a similar role this week, and how do the Ironmen plan to contain him?
Well, we feel like he is, number one, he is really talented and really good, and they do a great job of running their offense around him. Inside zone, outside zone counters. He's fast. He hits the hole hard. He's physical. They do a good job blocking up front, and then they do some really good play actions off their run game, whether it's booting out or running like a rollout off of a same side fake to him. I would imagine, based on the films that we see, they're going to, just like we would do, we're going to try to win with 11-4, 3, 20, 33. They're going to try to win with their quarterback making plays, getting the ball to one, and trying to find 3, 4, 5 in the passing game. So we're going to have to prepare that. Again, you try to make teams one-handed if you can. If you can, we feel like they're a run-first team, so we feel like the first and foremost thing we have to do is control that run game, and then put them into passing downs where we can bring pressure and play coverage and do different things that confuse them. Hopefully, make it difficult on them.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for your time, and good luck on Saturday.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.